Okay.
We are all the way here. Settling in. Now, we want you to more than anything be aware of the choices that you have. Now, what does that mean? We're not talking about the choices that you can go out and you can do it now and get it done. We're just talking about what energy are you moving forward with? Because when it comes to the energies, you have endless choices. And of course, you're recognizing those energies based on how they feel within the body. You can call it all sorts of things. You can call it tension. You could call it anger. You could call it joy, excitement, forward motion. But before we convince you that we want you to choose this connection with this inner energy and to make that the priority, we just want you to have that awareness within yourself. And taking everything else out of the equation, we want you to identify the feeling, identify the energy, and then just decide based on your own criteria, do you want this to continue? Do you want what you're feeling now to become more? And if the answer is no, then if you can collect yourself enough to have that awareness, that'll give you the ability to start to allow options, choices, different directions that you can go. But we know that when you're in the thick of it, it can be tricky to remind yourself of that. So that's why we just want you to even more clearly here decide, more clearly here decide how you're wanting to feel, what you're wanting to experience, and why. And so, what's being called forward from you here?
So I'll start. I have found this peace and energetic feeling of calm and expansion and just this kind of subtle energetic feeling of peace. And it has been what I've been choosing more and more and more, and it has been growing. And it reinforces itself.
It does.
Yeah. And there's one thing though, that one event, one experience that I could really use your guidance with, because while I am able to identify with, to feel that frequency, that vibration of love, and it's all good. I am really unsure what's happening right now with my husband and his dementia. And not unsure in the sense I know what it is and I know it could be progressing. But he got COVID this past week and things got a little crazy in terms of his response, I think. Feels like maybe it accelerated decline. I'm not sure. But I know that on a higher level, on a soul level, that this is, an experience that it's all good and I've accepted it and it is all good. And so I'm not resisting it. But I am trying to understand, like, and I've asked, like, what does his soul want me to know about this experience so that I can find some peace with it? Peace in the sense of, um, just letting it be. Like, it's such a hard thing because I have to be responsive on a physical level, but on a non-physical level, I understand the the experience that he's having. And so, yeah, I guess soul communication is what I'm hoping for. That perhaps, Joseph, you could give me some connection there with his soul in that respect to understand.
So if you're wanting to listen, of course, you place the intention, but we want you to pay attention to the space between your thoughts, because that's where you'll be able to move beyond what you're normally perceiving. Because with this one and with most who are physically around you, you're used to communicating in this sort of verbal back and forth way. And so when you think of them, your thoughts are very much associated with that traditional habitual way of being.
Mm-hmm.
You're even neurologically set up in that way, that your thoughts are almost as if you're talking to someone who's physically there. And
Mm-hmm.
so we want you to recognize that line of thought and also to be able to let it go. Because as he is shifting and changing, his method of perception is going into different places. And so you have to meet him where he is, because he is not so fully able to meet you where you are. And so that's why the process of meditation is so helpful for recognizing that line of thought. And in the same way you're receiving this inner guidance, we want you to use that same openness to receive the information from him. And it's going to be coming from what you call a soul level. It's going to be coming from that consistent energy. And it all works together, because to really clearly understand and to receive what he's wanting to communicate from that non-physical aspect of himself, from that non-physical energy, from the spirit, if you would,
Mm-hmm.
is of course for you to be receptive to spirit, to be receptive to that. And so all of that which you've been practicing working here is the same technique you'll use to receive that. And that's what he's showing you, is how really how that relationship continues, what the basis of it is. That the basis of it are not the words, it's not the conversation that you're having, but it's that deeper connection. And when you're seeing him in the physical experience behaving in different ways, we know again you want to communicate on that physical level. But if you're not getting that back, then it is again to release the thought and to just receive. And this will help you communicating with all physical beings, because it is true with everyone that you meet. That's how you're really picking up what's going on around you. That's how this process is going on that we're flowing in here. This is how you receive your own inner guidance. But the sort of way that you're steering the ship through all of this is intention and then receptivity. So intend to connect to that, and then just let your thoughts go and let what comes up next to you, trust it. And it's like taking baby steps as you continue to practice this. It'll be one impression. Sometimes it'll just be a feeling. And again, you're familiar with this process because you've done it with your own inner energy so much. But now it's receiving that as well. So again, it'll start as a feeling, sometimes an image, sometimes a nudge, sometimes an inclination. And then that's what you just let that language, you let yourself learn that language. And that's how you're communicating.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I do know what you're talking about in that sense of being in that field of openness, of receptivity, and just kind of allowing what comes up to be what I'm responding to in the moment rather than, you know, um, so let me just give you an example. So if I'm asking, do you want to stay in bed or do you want to get in the chair? And there's no answer, like he's not verbally responding to me, or the word duh comes out. And then I'll say to him, okay, so bed, and I'll point to it, or chair. And sometimes he'll respond, and sometimes, he won't. If my sense is it would be good for him to sit in the chair for a little while, and he's always really agreeable to whatever that is. Is that the I mean, I tried to distinguish between what
It's
the soul wants.
subtle, yes, and
Okay.
you'll get a feel for it. And we want you to know that you have the opportunity to practice this. You'll always have the opportunity to practice it on things that are not so breathtaking, so so make it or break it in the moment. So when it's something such as bed or chair, we want you to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room with this to let yourself even get it wrong. And as you just turn it into a fun new way of deepening your connection, because you are in this process going deeper in that connection than you've ever been before,
Mm-hmm.
receiving deeper information, you're connecting on that deeper level, and he's there as well,
Mm.
sharing that with you. So just let it be a practice. But you'll know. It will feel like him. It will feel like home. It will feel right. It will feel clear. And in the same way that you've walked through this process and you know you get the feeling, you start to feel the nudge. And we've always said with things like wanting to manifest things or release things, go for the walk, and then you'll feel the clarity, and that's when you start receiving all of the information.
Mm-hmm.
And we want you to take that same process and bring it into real time when you're having those communications. And again, it's just sort of asking the question, setting down the thought, breathing, relaxing, paying
Yeah.
attention to what comes, and just having a little bit of fun with it, because it is a game for both of you.
Yeah. It's so I appreciate what you're saying about the fact that the expectation around communication in old ways kind of gets in the way a little
It
bit.
does.
Yeah. Hmm. Yep. So I think that's helpful to remember that. And yeah, there is also a sense of freedom in that energy of let's see how we do this today. Let's see how this works today. Yeah. Hmm. Rather than, okay, you didn't answer me whether he wanted, orange juice or coffee. So, yeah,
And you'll be able to tell the difference, because if you're ever using your thought, you'll be saying things like, you really shouldn't have coffee right now. That caffeine is not a great idea. And that is not coming from him in that sense. And so it's just recognizing your own voice, your
yeah,
own tone,
yeah.
and being able
Yeah.
to receive more.
Okay. And I also heard what you said about, him teaching me in this situation, in this experience about communication in a different way, that this is an opportunity for me to learn something like in a new way, to learn a new way of being.
Yes.
Yeah. Hmm.
And as you learn from him, you'll be able to learn from the birds. You'll be able to learn from your own inner guidance. You'll be able to learn, because it's all, there's consciousness flowing through all of it. So you're just learning that language more intricately.
Yeah.
And sometimes
So,
it'll just be looking at a flower and radiating your appreciation. And in the same way he's taught you, you let your thought relax, and then you just receive the appreciation back from you. Now, the flower isn't going to look and wink at you and say, have a nice day,
right.
but it will be communicating just that presence of energy. And that's what you're tuning into here, that presence. And sometimes that presence will reveal itself to you in terms of an inner word. Sometimes it will reveal itself to you again in terms of an image, a feeling. So it's learning this energetic language.
Mm, thank you, Joseph.
Indeed. And it's a process. So as you would learning any other language, give yourself the time.
Okay. Okay. That's good.
What else do we have here? Luke, are you having questions? Are you having anything call you? Is anything being called forward, or are we all just enjoying the energy?
Well, I am enjoying the energy, and uh, the one thing that comes to mind is that over the course of the week, I've been working with the joy of my experience of what it is that I'm calling in, and be it, you know, financial means to retire, um, the just this sense of love that I can be with and with other people, and um, calling in various things that I just on a personal level that I would love to have in my life. And that's it. And the experience of just calling that in has in and of itself almost been enough, you know, to feel like I have it already.
Almost.
Almost. uh, because clearly it's not, it's shown up in the sense that I have the, in the moment, the experience of having it, in the joy of it, and yet still waiting for the physical reality to come in, of whatever it is. So it's been that, and the balance between that and holding it, and noticing how easy it is for it to slip away as I get into the world, and the world takes over, and my work takes over, and all of the stress, and so it's a kind of a back and forth play between that flow and the flow of be here now, in with where with my responsibilities. Um, so and also dealing with the shadow self too, and having to clear myself, you know, do the clearings often, and so I find myself, so that's also just part of the process. Um, just trying to stay in my authentic self as much as possible.
And so that's the process. So several things we want to sort of go through here. And the first is, of course, the foundation, which is connecting, building, enhancing that energy. And you spoke to us of several different intentions: the financial means to joyfully retire, the connection with others, the freedom. And we want you to take all of these kind of different aspects and bring them all into one picture. Because at the core of all of these different experiences is that common energy. And so if you can find that common energy, that's why all of these different things are lighting up, because they're all in the same wavelength, if you would. And so you take the time during the day, and it's a daily practice. It's not an all or nothing. It's not a do it once or so. You bring it all together into a total package, and you deliberately make the time in every day. You set a timer and you put yourself there. 10 minutes, 15 minutes if you're enjoying it. And you put yourself into that state where it's not just one thing, but it's the life that you're living. So you're maybe in the middle of the day and you're walking through and you're having a wonderful conversation, and then you decide with that person to go out for a lunch, and you and you have a really fine lunch and it lasts for quite a while and you're enjoying all of the wonderful food that's coming out, and between courses you're sitting and you're reflecting on how much you enjoy your life and where you are and what's been working and all of the wonderful experiences that you have, and then you get up from lunch and you just had such a satisfying time, and you just go on and you put yourself into that moment in time. You don't think relationships, 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 relationships. You don't think money, 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 but you put yourself there and you make it real for you. And then you let it go. And we really mean that. You just let it go. And then you make peace. And this is the other part of the equation. So that's sort of the first half. And the other half is moving through your day to maintain it. So you're not, in other words, you set that into motion during that time of focus. And then if you start to get bogged down with your day, that's when things start to slow down. That's where you're putting the brake on it a little bit throughout the rest of the day. So the balance is to find yourself moving throughout this day. And instead of thinking, this is so much worse than the vision that I have in my mind, you really have to accept, make peace with, even find enjoyment in your daily life. And that is a practice in and unto itself. Yes. But when you make it simple for yourself and you give yourself that time to focus and say, okay, that was my creative work for the day, I did it. And then you move forward and you'll start taking things less personally throughout the day. Because we know if you really want something, but you don't have a direct means of moving there, then everything that comes up within your life is only going to aggravate that sense of dissatisfaction, which is, of course, slowing the whole process down. So, whatever it takes, it's really letting go of so much responsibility, as you might call it. And we're not saying release all responsibility, but what you've taken into much of your day, and the reason that you're sort of being slowed down by this is you're taking it all just a little bit seriously. And we understand why, because that's what you're doing and that's sort of what you see yourself doing, and you don't really see a path to moving into the other. And we want you to be able to let that go because we've just given you the path. You take that time and you put yourself there, and you put yourself there emotionally, and you put yourself energetically there, and you really just feel it. We don't care what you call it, a fantasy, an imagination, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that you actually experience that essence. Not all day, every day. It's not all or nothing. You focus there and you focus and you focus and you enjoy it and you revel in it and you experience it. And then you let it go and you go through your day and you reassure yourself that the creative work is done and all of this is just, it is what it is. And you sort of move on through this process. And when you let yourself off the hook, when you make all of what's going around you physically less important, the most amazing things start happening to you. Because in order for that experience that you've been focusing upon to flow in, it needs to have a place to flow into. And if you're thinking, if you're still in those thought loops, if you're still engaging with your physical environment and it's affecting you emotionally and you're invested in it and it means so much to you and you want to sort of fix it or change it or this doesn't, and all of that, those loops, if you would, they're taking up the inner space where that desire that you focused upon could be flowing into. So, as we've spoken here, and this is not the first time it's been said, but being in the world, but not of the world in that sense, being of your own inner process, enjoying it, knowing that it's on its way, and you know it because you focused it into being and you felt it. And just imagine when you truly accept that, when you truly accept the effectiveness of that process, when you truly accept the reality of that inner energy, then you let yourself just off the hook when it comes to so much of that tension that you've held on to. And then, of course, that's when it can flow in. But it's an art, yes? It's an art. It's an art and a practice. It's an art when you're going into the visualization that you're not doing it by rote, you're not doing it by strictly routine, but you're putting yourself into that essence and you're really experiencing it. That's one aspect of the art. The other is that the art of just, we're trying to find palatable words, of not giving any cares about any of that stuff, because none of it matters. None of that stuff has anything to do with the end result that we're talking about here. So put it into its proper perspective. And that's an art as well. Again, an art of just not caring about all of that stuff that doesn't matter. And then the science is that balance that comes between the two. And then it just flows in. It does. You'll be at work or wherever, and instead of feeling that responsibility or feeling that tension or feeling the sort of dragging, the slowing down, the inevitable grip that comes from it, instead of feeling that, you'll be letting yourself just sort of float around, and all of a sudden an idea will pop in, or all of a sudden someone will talk to you, or all of a sudden something will happen. Now it's one thing, and when the one thing starts happening, that's when we want you to appreciate it. That's when you'll know the process is working. And we want you to hear this very clearly, because the evidence that you're looking for here will come to you throughout the day, and it will feel just like you felt in that time of visualization.
Mm.
That's how you know. That's how you know you're having that effect. When someone says something to you and it just causes that rush of memory, you'll know you're on the trail. When you have an idea pop into your head in terms of something you could do, and it feels like that essence that you focus upon earlier in the day, you'll know it's just more evidence of tipping the scales. And thoughts will lead to experiences, will lead to conversations. And that's the path that you're creating for yourself by following this process. And then it becomes fun. It does. Knowing that you focus there, knowing that you've practiced it, seeing the evidence show up,
It
knowing
is,
that you've got a handle. Go ahead, yes.
yeah, it is very enjoyable. I mean, I love swimming in the energy of it all. And I do, my experience is that I can call it up almost any time. I can do it while I'm driving. I can do it, you know, just anytime I choose to. And then I let it go. And it's actually even more enjoyable than just being, it becomes an enjoyable part of the day when I just spontaneously start to imagine and be in that energy. Um, yeah, I think I'm trying to really grok what you're saying. So it is to me, what I heard you saying is that it is a process of being in the energy, letting it go so that it can come back in.
Yes.
You've got to make room for it to come back in. You've got
Yes.
to just let it go and be in life, be in the joy of life, and then just allow.
Yes.
I guess that's the simplest way I can put it.
And we don't want to make it much more complicated than that, because that's really what it comes down to. And we'll work as well. This is something that you'll always be developing more tools throughout this process to make it easier and easier to let go as you're moving through. But we don't want to add too many more words to this, because that's really what it is. The value, the enjoyment, and the meaning, the personal meaning for you comes about as the process continues. As you see something that had previously bothered you, that's the opportunity. We don't want you to see it as something that's holding you back. We want you to recognize the opportunity there, and we want you to get to eventually the place where what you're saying to yourself is, I really thought that this was a problem, but I had a problem like this just the other day. And when I let it go and I made that shift, something new came in for me. A new experience showed up for me. And maybe this problem is just the same thing. And when I work here and I release this, there's something tremendous on the other side. And I'm grateful for this recognition of this terrible way that I feel, because it's just something that I haven't quite released yet. And I'm really glad that I have had this recognition, because I would much rather know that my toe is bleeding than to not know. I'd rather know that this is here so I can do something about it. And so that's what it becomes. That's what it flows into. You have the focus, you have the energy that you call forward so well, and then you hit a barrier. And the barrier isn't there coming at you to slap you in the face. The barrier is there to show you, oh, this is my outer limit. The reason that this is bothering me is because it's been part of me, and now it's time to let it go. And I know it's part of me because I wouldn't have this strong emotional reaction to it unless there was something really important and part of my belief system, part of my process.
It's coming up so I can see it.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just an indication of what you've already had within you. We call them belief structures. So it's an element of your belief structure that's becoming physically revealed to you, that's becoming known. And you know that there's a belief associated with it because there's strong emotion.
Yeah.
So the negative experience is just a doorway. Now, if you don't have this process, if you don't know how to shift your energy, we understand why you would want to bury your head in the sand, why you would want to run away from these things, why you would want to hide from them, why you would want to change them so that they don't bother you anymore. And that's the approach that most people are doing it. But
Right.
that just gets you further into the tar pit until that's all you see around you. And a lot of people think that that's what life is.
No, I prefer to see everything as an opportunity for my own healing. It becomes a doorway into letting it go, or seeing it for what it is, and healing, making it, not making it real, letting it go.
And so it is.
That's, yeah, that's my practice.
I have a challenge with this. While I understand it and I believe it, what you're talking about, Joseph and Luke, letting it go. I do find myself wanting to, like, trying to understand, well, what do I do? Because not what do I do so much as, like, perhaps not holding myself back from anticipating the kind of freedom or joy that I would like to bring into my life. There's a lot of freedom and a lot of joy in my life, don't get me wrong, and there's so much wonder. And every day, I know what you're talking about, Joseph, that feeling comes up in some way or another where I'm like, yes, this is like incredible, this power of source energy flowing through me. So I totally know what you're talking about. But the thing that I'm talking about now is, like, I feel like because of my husband's condition, that I feel that maybe I can't desire what the kind of freedom that I want. I'm trying to, like, put that in a context.
You're trying to figure it all out. And
Yeah.
you will receive the answers, but there's a subtle difference between trying to figure it out and receiving the answer. To solve the problem and to receive the solution.
Yes.
And so while we could walk you through that entire process, it's so rewarding to recognize that the feeling is fundamental here. Do you see what we're getting into with this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So in spite of the appearances, in spite of, the world of appearances, the feeling of freedom exists, and it exists as a energetic vibration that is part of me and that is available to me and that I can tap into.
Period.
Period. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the only question we want to ask you, and we want you to be asking, is how can I get there? How can I get there now?
Yeah.
If it's dependent on any other person, if it's dependent on any outside experience, you're stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. And it's this idea that other people in a way like are not more important than me, but that their feelings or taking care of them or them being happy is important.
It is.
And therefore, if someone can't do that for themselves and I can do it, then I should do it. I don't know if that came out right, but and I've thought about this, and at least in my childhood, where my mother's feelings were most important, more than mine, you know, everybody else's feelings were pretty much more important than mine when I was a child. And that's how I coped. If they were all happy, then that was good. So that has come up and I kind of walked through that, and you helped me with some of that as my mother was making a transition. And at the same time, I find that it keeps popping up in these different forms. And so just moving into the feeling of freedom, just moving into the feeling of being free, I guess, is for me right now. It feels like this open, beautiful consciousness, and I can feel that. And yet I think I have these desires for things, like Luke was saying, but I'm not allowing myself to kind of feel that.
So it's subtle, but what you're talking to us here about is freedom from these things. And if I'm free from them, then I won't be able to help them and I won't be able to uplift them. And just sort of laying that thought out there, feel that. Because that's not what we're talking about here. When we want you to sort of redefine your relationship with freedom.
Yeah.
Because what we're really talking about is the freedom, as we started this conversation with, as we opened with, is that freedom of choice that you have. That's what freedom is. It's not freedom and it's not their problems or freedom, or it's not this, again, all or nothing experience here. But when you truly accept that, when you're choosing that energy, it's going to become more and it's going to become your experience, and then you can share that with others. That's freedom. And in the practice of that and in the feeling of that, that's the experience that you're talking to us about. It has nothing to do with anything going on in your physical world.
Yeah, I hear you. I know what you're talking about in that sense. I do.
And so do the practice. When you're looking at them and they want something from you that you want to provide, we want you to put yourself into the place of, well, what would that feel like if I had more than enough energy and I was able to not only do that, but take care of myself and share it with others? And then you find that essence, and then you practice it a little bit. And then you say, oh, I had the freedom to choose that energy, and now I found a really great way to help them, and I feel great in the process, and everyone is happy. That's what freedom is. It's being able to choose that essence, regardless of what is going on around you.
Yeah. Yeah. You just push through a limitation. You just push through a boundary that I was experiencing, in a sense. Yeah.
And you still don't know the how.
Right.
And that's okay, because the how is a moving target. The how is a developing thing. The methods, the means, the practices, whatever you're doing to assist others, it's an in the moment thing that will come to you, but it will come to you when you choose that energy that we're talking about here. Now, to bring this all full circle, and we didn't talk about this so much at the beginning of this, of course, but we think we've gotten you both to the place where you're ready to choose again what we want you to choose, which is that connection to your own inner energy. And that choice, that feels like freedom. That's when you're connected to that inner energy. That's when you're having the new ideas come in. And that's when you're flexible. That's when someone is asking something from you. You're open and receptive. You've already had that energy flowing. And you say, yes, I know exactly what to do. Or I know exactly where to go to find out. Or I am having this image start to come. Maybe this will take us in the direction that we want to go. And that's where the how comes from. It's an in the moment summoning sort of thing. And it's all the same process, yes. When your partner's talking to you, having this conversation, and you're receiving it on the inner, that's the same as receiving a solution on the fly to a question that someone's asking you. That's the same as receiving the next steps to getting to that financially prosperous retirement. That's the same state of being that you're using to receive your own inner guidance. It's all the same. And we're calling it again, sort of crack the space between your thoughts, where you're able to just receive that state of being. And everything you want is contained within it. So again, we'll ask you, what are you choosing? What energy are you choosing throughout the day? And what's your priority?
I had this flashback experience in meditation to when I was a child, and it was a beautiful feeling of being connected through my physical body to heaven and earth, and an amazing sense of joy, like just this beautiful brilliance that I felt. And that felt like freedom to me. That felt like this beautiful energy. Now, I was a child. And so I'm sure that that energy is now, honed, if you will, by the wisdom of my experience, becoming an adult. But I I believe that that pure essence, that feeling that I had, that flashback was is truly me. And it was expansive, and it wasn't tied to anything. It wasn't listening to anybody in terms of, you should be doing this, you should do that. It was really this beautiful, like, brilliant energy. Um, and that feeling, I'm not trying to recreate it or, kind of make it happen again, but it just gave me this kind of insight, if you will. Um, to kind of peeling away some layers and maybe getting to that core essence that you're talking about.
Well, the only reason you can have that flashback is because you're there energetically. And so that's an example of what we're talking about here. You're there. You don't have to recreate it. You're creating it in this moment. So whether it's images of your future, whether it's images from the past, whether it's things that you're inspired to do right now, the commonality, you said it's not tied to anything, and we want to say that it is. It's tied to this inner energy. And you've chosen it and you're experiencing it. And that's why you have access to those thoughts. That's why you have access to those inspirations that you've had throughout your life. That's how you become this focal point that brings it all together. And that's when the next steps become clear to you. But not next steps in the sense that there's something that you're supposed to do.
Right.
Next steps in the sense that you're doing this right here, right now, and now it's something else that's calling you forward.
That's an interesting perspective. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Because there were no conditions, there were It was just your state of being. You're already there. It just flowed right in. And then you just let it stabilize you and enjoy it. And then it combusts and it calls you forward to something else.
Oh, okay.
Because that version of yourself is still very much alive, still very much a part of you, still thinking, still feeling, still reaching out. And you have that energetic connection. So, and that is a sort of path that we could go down endlessly, but we want you to just know that it's all happening right now, that the ideas that you've had throughout your life, the best aspects of them, the culmination of them, the resolution, all of that is available to you now.
Yeah.
And sometimes that makes you think, oh wow, that's a lot. And you'll always just receive what you're ready to receive. You'll always receive your next step by continuing to practice this energy. Practicing it in the early part of the day, things come up throughout the day that challenge it. Good. This is an opportunity to let more energy into my experience where I hadn't been previously allowing it to flow.
Thank you for bringing that into the now.
Indeed.
It was very helpful. That's good. Mm-hmm.
Good. So you know what the choices are. You know what you're choosing. You know why you're choosing it. You know what it means when something comes up that challenges that choice and how to reorient yourself to build that momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else here?
I have a kind of a big picture question. In terms of the year 2020, the revelations perhaps that have come through this year for humanity, I wondered about this sense of kind of, for me, I've learned to trust in myself more on an individual level. I've learned to trust, like I've learned to trust my health. I've learned to trust my the energy. I've learned to trust, like trust has been a big thing for me this year. Are there revelations that this year in particular have emphasized in general for humanity?
The turning point.
The turning point.
That all that which had been festering has been brought to the surface to be seen clearly. And now you make the choice. Everyone makes the choice. What do you participate with?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And you will continue to see that. But for every individual and for you, it is a choosing point again.
Mm-hmm.
The options have been made clear to you. You feel how certain things feel. You know you don't want to feel that way. You feel the way that other things feel to you very clearly. You know that you want to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it is. All of the possibilities, all of the different aspects of who you all are being brought to the forefront, giving you
Mm-hmm.
the clear choice.
Mm. Yes. Almost in a conscious way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Joseph.
And that's where you see the turning point as well, from that choice.
From the choice. Okay. Choice.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Very much. Anything else here for today?
It's interesting to me. I sit here listening, and I'm not sure I'm understanding, but I think on some level I'm understanding.
You are. And that's what we're talking about. You don't have to figure it out.
Yeah.
We don't want you to make the priority the words that we're speaking. We want you to make the priority the energy that you're feeling. And then the understanding will come freely from that.
Well, the energy I'm feeling is very open. I feel very light and very expansive, and so I can do that. I can allow that for myself and give
Yes.
that to myself whenever I want to. And um, so to me, everything that I've just heard is it's a matter of doing a process and just in being in the energy and the joy and letting it go and
It's a good life.
enjoying life. And I think it's the enjoying life piece that I forget.
It's just as important because the enjoyment in this moment lets everything start to flow in.
Yeah,
And that's how you accomplish all of the things that you're wanting to accomplish.
yeah,
And we want to say something to you as well, because the way that you felt this energy and brought it into your experience, the way that you're enjoying it, relaxing into it, we want you to remember that nothing can come into your experience unless you bring it forward energetically. So you've created this experience for yourself. And in this moment, you allow it to continue and to grow and develop because you're doing exactly what we're talking about here. You're just relaxing into the energy and you're experiencing it. So now it lets you go forward. It takes you into a new experience, and then you'll feel the energy more and it will call you forward. So again, that's what life is. We've enjoyed this conversation very much.
yes.
Very
Thank you.
much. Much momentum set into place. So take the time to nurture that momentum and take that moment to pause and reflect when something touches you in a way that does not resonate with that energy. Do I want to move forward with this? Make that choice, and it will be your experience.
Mhm.
We are complete here.
Yes.
Hi.
Yeah, Aaron.
Oh, that was a good one.
It was so empowering. I was just going to say that to Joseph. It felt very empowering the whole time we were talking and
Wow.
yeah, together and yeah, very
I'm
empowering.
swooning. That
Oh,
was
that's
great.
cool. That's really
I felt
cool.
like that was an extra good one. Well,
Yeah,
awesome. It's
thank
going to be
you.
good back to go. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for coming. Thank you for calling that forward.
Hmm.
It was very enjoyable. So I'll get the recording up for that. And otherwise, I'll see you next week.
Okay.
Yes.
See you next week. Bye, Luke. See you next
Bye,
week.
Marilyn. Thank you very
Thank
much for
you.
everything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Here,
Thank you
Aaron.
both. Happy
Bye.
holidays.
Happy holidays.